I constantly say not everything is bad. I know there is this thought that it's all bad, it's all lost, and there's nothing good happening. I contend with you that that is not the case. Things are changing. What I've noticed is you might not notice this if you're not paying attention to it, but things are always cyclic. You have these ebbs and flows of life. You get this in politics, you get this in entertainment, you get it in media. Things are good and they're bad. They go through lull periods. And I think we went through our peak of entertainment as far as comic books and all of those things are concerned. I'd say 80s, late 70s, 80s, 90s, there was like a peak comic book creation and content. I think as far as movies are concerned in comic books, when you get to, I'd say, early to mid 2000s, up until 6 or 7 years ago, it was like peak entertainment and comic book media as far as movies, cartoons, etc. And now we have a downturn and going into a lull period where it's just like some things are bad, right? Objectively speaking, they're bad. Some things are okay, but nothing is really peak. But then you had this small window. If you remember when the Netflix series of Marvel shows came out, it was like a meteor hit. When I watched that first season of Daredevil, I was instantaneously hooked. And I'll admit, I'm not a huge Daredevil fan. I never have been. I did not follow the comic books like that. But man, if that show did not turn me into, I'm not going to say I was an outright fan, but I grew an appreciation for Daredevil that I did not have before that. So I can honestly say that the TV series, I'd say TV series, the Netflix streaming series, so used to saying certain things, times have changed, definitely gained for me more interest in that Daredevil character. And even though I haven't purchased any Daredevil books as a result of that, I know there are many good runs of the Daredevil comic book. People have told me, I know the runs, I know the artists, but I just never picked them up. I might actually do that. I just haven't had time and gotten around to that. Lord willing, I might actually get to that. But that Daredevil series, now it was definitely not meant for the young. It was very aggressive. And from everything I know of the Daredevil comic, it was accurate to the comic. Now, of course, and I always say this, there will be some changes when you have a comic book or a TV show adaptation or cartoon, not so much cartoon, more TV show or movie adaptation of a comic book. There will be some changes because certain things don't necessarily translate well to the big screen. And this is something that you wouldn't really understand until you see something play out in the comic books and then you see it on a silver screen and you're like, that doesn't really land well. It doesn't land as well as it did in the comic book. So I begin to understand why certain changes are made. I get it. I understand it. But Daredevil was so good. It was so good. And there was, I would say, Luke Cage season 1, I definitely liked. Jessica Jones, it was an intriguing show. Never into the character, but that show, like the first season, I was like, okay, I'm actually interested. Iron Fist wasn't my cup of tea. But Punisher, for me, the Punisher in those string of shows felt like it was like accurate to the comic book. I was like, yo, Netflix is knocking it out the park. Of course, Disney Plus started, and then all of those shows just went away because Disney is not known for edgy content like some of those shows had. But what do we have here? We have some possibly potential good news. I'm not going to say outright good news. I don't know what's going to happen. But this article from Bounding Into Comics, Marvel Studios TV head confirms the Punisher will return after Daredevil Born Again, says John Bernthal, is working on a special presentation with us about that character. And from what I hear, all of the early reports, there were so the Daredevil show in the way it was initially shot, the Born Again show, it was really not well received. It was not liked. There were some issues. I guess Charlie Cox, who plays Matt Murdock, voiced his problem. And you know what? They probably did it kicking and screaming, but from what I hear, Marvel actually fixed those issues. And everyone who I'm seeing, all the reports I'm seeing about this Daredevil series, it's good. I'm hearing that this show could actually save Marvel. Now, there are a lot of people are saying that about shows, right? People say the Fantastic Four can save Marvel. I don't know. I don't know how good and or bad Fantastic Four will be. You will know if I don't review Fantastic Four that I didn't really like it too much. Okay, the article goes on to say, to the surprise of the gun-toting anti-hero, many fans, Marvel Studios head of streaming television and animation, Brad Winderbaum, has confirmed that not only will John Bernthal's take on the Punisher remain a canon member of the Marvel Cinematic Universe post Daredevil Born Again, but he'll also be receiving his own special presentation. I'm here for it. I said when I watched Deadpool and Wolverine that for me, this was in some ways Marvel conceding and saying, okay, fans, we hear you. We hear what you want, and we're now going to acquiesce and give you exactly what you want. A rarely used side imprint for the overall MCU, Marvel Studios' special presentation label is used by the Disney subsidiary as in continuity testing ground for projects whose scopes and featured characters may not warrant a full television series or feature film. I think The Punisher could use a feature film, but I like the fact that they went with a show for The Punisher. I think that worked better. Just as well as I think doing a TV show for Daredevil worked much better than doing a movie. That Ben Affleck Daredevil wasn't a terrible movie, but it was one of those movies that was just like, I enjoyed it, but it did not leave a lasting impression on me like, say, a Man of Steel or that first Iron Man movie. Holding a typical runtime of roughly 1 hour, only 2 special presentations have thus far been produced across the entire history of the MCU. The more classic horror-oriented Werewolf by Night and the whimsical slash heartwarming The Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, both which was released in 2022. You know, I still haven't watched that Guardians of the Galaxy special, and I hear it's good. Everybody I've talked to said they liked it. And there were actually things, I guess, that were mentioned in the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie that were actually from that. So I guess I probably should go back and watch that. And though it took roughly 3 years, it seems the imprint will finally be getting another entry, this time courtesy of none other than Frank Castle. As seen in a now deleted video originally uploaded by comicbook.com, while speaking to the changes the skull-clad vigilante has undergone between his last appearance in Netflix the Punisher and his already revered return and Born Again during the latter series currently ongoing press tour, the aforementioned Winterbomb bluntly revealed to the outlet that that's a character very personal to John. He made that character an icon, and he's working on a special presentation with us right now about that character. Here's another thing, and I didn't know this. Charlie Cox actually said that he would be willing to play Daredevil for years. This is the thing that I think Hollywood at some point must understand, and it almost appears like they are beginning to understand. You really have to get people that are invested in these characters, because I can tell if somebody's playing a character and it's just like, it was just a role. And look, some people do that. They play characters and it's just a role. And then you have those people who you kind of get the impression like, yo, this is more than a role. Either this person understands the importance of this character to other people, or maybe they were actually into comic books. I don't know about Charlie Cox. I haven't looked into, his history that much, but man, did he do a stellar job on Daredevil. So did, I'm forgetting his name right now, that plays Kingpin. I don't know why I can't remember his name. Another one. Great job. And that character is driven by a lot of pain and a need to get vengeance and justice. But it's always interesting where his philosophy lands on how he doles out that justice. He added, returning to the original question, to me, that's the most interesting part of The Punisher. And The Punisher is definitely an interesting and complex character. The Punisher is one of those characters that if you just wrote this down on paper before he was ever released, you probably would have thought, this character really won't work. It won't land with audiences well. But man, the Punisher is probably one of the most beloved characters. This sentiment was subsequently echoed by Winterbomb's fellow press attendee, Born Again showrunner Dario Scartapan, who is building on his colleague's comments, asserted, well, now, Frank is a special kind of guy, isn't he? And he is. He is one of those characters. If you watched my video about cult classics, I think The Punisher falls into that vein of a cult classic character. There are Punisher skulls everywhere. Military squadrons have them. Video games have it. Police officers have it. Border Patrol agents, anybody that's been in any kind of tactical gear, somebody has that skull. It is a widely known skull. It is a cult classic. I think in some ways, especially amongst those who served and amongst those who serve in a public capacity, law enforcement, etc., I think that skull is like a symbol of justice, kind of like Superman. I really do believe that. Okay, so we know from the trailer, Frank comes back, and Frank has been gone since he kind of walked off into the sunset at the end of The Punisher Season 2, he explained. Frank has come back for a very particular reason, and Frank has been brought back by a very particular person. So the best answer to your question is why he returns and what he returns for. It's kind of a hallmark of his evolution. Oh, I'm here for it. Something tells me, look, people are saying Daredevil Born Again. This is that moment. Like Disney's official return, like they're here. I'm not going to call that. Who knows? Maybe they learned their lesson. Maybe they learn, hey, the fans are asking for something. Just give them what they want. Like if you're making these things to make money, just give the fans what they want. To me, that's an easy way to make money. Unsurprisingly, neither Winterbomb nor Scartapan provided any information as to just what fans could expect from the upcoming The Punisher special presentation. I would imagine it's going to be brutal. I would imagine it's going to be unlike what you're used to for Disney. I've said this before. I said when Marvel bought Disney, I think they should have, or when Disney bought Marvel, I said that backwards. I think they should have kept Marvel as a solely owned subsidiary. Like, we know you're owned by Disney, but you are your own thing. So that way they could have just had like Disney Plus with like a Marvel streaming edition. So they could just put these things out, because I think now Disney realizes that, some of Marvel characters are brutal and you can't try to Disneyfy that. It will not work. Right? Like if they tried to Disneyfy Wolverine, that just wouldn't work. Imagine if they tried to Disneyfy Daredevil. I mean, not Daredevil, Deadpool. Look, he's an interesting character. More over the top than I care for, but that is accurate to the comic book. So you couldn't just disregard what fans has grown to love and change them in Disneyfy. That wouldn't have worked. And there's a lot of characters that just won't work with. However, given both the character is and the outside of the usual MCU fair nature of the special presentation, speculation currently suggests that whatever story it may tell, it will likely be exceptionally violent and possibly even deal with more gritty and real-world subject matter than any other mainline franchise entry. Even Born Again, which per star Vincent D'Onofrio, I think that's him, plays Kingpin, will apparently see its on-screen brutality go way past anything Netflix ever did. And you know what? Disney's hand, in my opinion, was forced in this regard, because they had to, I get the impression they know they had to convince fans, okay, we're not going to mess this up. We are not going to screw this up. It's funny that it feels to me like this was the thing they absolutely could not screw up, or it would be the nail in the coffin. And I'm hearing rumblings from everybody who's already seen it that this thing delivers. While word remains out on The Punisher, will strike out on his own, fans can see him return to the streets in Daredevil Born Again, which is currently set to hit Disney Plus on March 4th. I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked in the slightest if, as a result of this Daredevil Born Again series, if Disney Plus actually manages to pick back up some of the 700,000 people that they lost. I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not going to say they're going to pick them all back up, and maybe they don't pick any back up. But this is what I think. FOMO is something, fear of missing out, if you've never heard that before. And when people start talking about this show and other people realize, I don't have my Disney Plus anymore, and everybody's talking about this show, it's everywhere. It's on every bit of media you see. Everybody's talking about Daredevil Born Again. Now I'm going to have to go get Disney Plus because I need to see this. That's a real thing. I think there are going to be many people who don't want to miss out, who want to be in on a conversation. And if this show is as good as I am hearing so far, man, this is a really good thing. And as I said in the beginning, not everything is all lost. And we have some things to look forward to in the geek space.